James Peterson, a hard-working and diligent man in his late 30s, had been feeling unwell for several weeks. Despite his busy schedule working as a mechanic and taking care of his family, James finally decided it was time to seek medical attention. The persistent fatigue and occasional sharp pains in his chest had become too concerning to ignore. With a mix of hope and apprehension, he made an appointment at a reputable clinic known for its experienced doctors. On the day of his appointment, James arrived at the clinic early, dressed neatly in a collared shirt and jeans. He sat in the waiting room, his hands clasped tightly in his lap as he filled out the necessary paperwork. The clinic was clean and modern, with a calming hum of air conditioning and the muted buzz of conversation in the background. James couldn't help but feel a flicker of optimism. Surely, the doctors here would be able to help him. However, his initial optimism began to wane as he approached the front desk. The receptionist, a young woman with a practiced smile, glanced up and gave him a once-over. Her smile faltered, and she barely concealed her surprise. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone polite but lacking warmth. James handed her his paperwork and explained that he had an appointment with Dr. Smith. The receptionist's smile tightened, and she directed him to take a seat, assuring him that the doctor would be with him shortly. As he sat down, James couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He noticed the way the receptionist's eyes followed him briefly before she returned to her work, and how other patients glanced at him with a mix of curiosity and indifference. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, James heard his name called. He stood up and followed a nurse to an examination room, where he waited for Dr. Smith. The room was sterile and impersonal, with bright fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows on the white walls. James sat on the examination table, his heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. When Dr. Smith entered the room, James greeted him with a hopeful smile. Dr. Smith, a middle-aged man with thinning hair and glasses perched on the edge of his nose, gave James a brief nod. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked, not bothering to make eye contact as he glanced over James' chart. James explained his symptoms, detailing the fatigue, chest pains, and the general sense of unease that had been plaguing him. Dr. Smith listened with an air of impatience, his eyes flicking to the clock on the wall several times. When James finished, Dr. Smith scribbled a few notes on the chart and finally looked up, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Peterson," Dr. Smith began, his tone brisk, "I'm sure you're just experiencing some minor stress or overexertion. It's nothing to be overly concerned about. I'll prescribe you some painkillers and recommend rest. If the symptoms persist, you can make another appointment." James felt a surge of frustration and disappointment. "But, doctor, I've been feeling this way for weeks. Isn't there any way to find out what's really going on?" Dr. Smith sighed, clearly annoyed. "As I said, it's probably nothing serious. If you insist on further tests, you'll have to schedule another appointment. I'm quite busy today." With that, the doctor left the room, leaving James feeling more helpless than before. He walked out of the clinic, the prescription slip clutched in his hand, wondering if he would ever find someone who would take his concerns seriously. The rejection from Dr. Smith hit James hard. He had gone to the clinic with genuine concern, hoping to get some answers and relief from his troubling symptoms. Instead, he felt dismissed and belittled. As he walked back to his car, the prescription slip felt like a cruel reminder of the doctor's indifference. James drove home in silence, his mind racing with thoughts and emotions. He couldn't help but replay the interaction in his head. The way Dr. Smith had barely looked at him, the dismissive tone in his voice, it all stung deeply. It wasn't just the lack of a thorough examination that bothered James. It was the feeling of not being seen, of being reduced to a stereotype or an inconvenience. Back at home, James tried to shake off the experience and focus on his family. His wife, Lisa, immediately sensed something was wrong. She had been waiting anxiously for news about his appointment. "How did it go?" she asked, her eyes full of concern. James sighed and sat down at the kitchen table, rubbing his temples. "The doctor didn't take me seriously. He just said it was stress and gave me some painkillers." Lisa's face fell. "But you've been feeling this way for weeks. We need to find out what's really going on." "I know," James replied, frustration creeping into his voice. "But he wouldn't listen. He just brushed me off." Lisa sat down beside him and took his hand. "We'll figure this out, James. Maybe we can find another doctor, someone who will actually listen." James nodded, grateful for her support but still feeling the weight of the rejection. That night, as he lay in bed, the pain in his chest seemed to intensify, fueled by the stress and disappointment of the day. He couldn't help but wonder if his race had played a part in the way he was treated. The thought gnawed at him, adding to his sense of frustration and helplessness. Over the next few days, James tried to go about his daily routine, but the experience at the clinic lingered in his mind. At work, he struggled to focus, his thoughts constantly drifting back to Dr. Smith's dismissive attitude. His co-workers noticed his distraction, and a few of them expressed concern, but James found it hard to explain what he was feeling. One afternoon, while working on a particularly challenging repair job, James felt a sharp pain in his chest. He had to stop and catch his breath, leaning against the car he was working on. His co-worker, Mike, rushed over. "You okay, man?" James nodded weakly. "Yeah, just a little chest pain. It'll pass." But Mike wasn't convinced. "You need to get that checked out, James. Seriously. Don't mess around with chest pain." James appreciated Mike's concern, but felt a surge of frustration. "I tried, Mike. The doctor just gave me some painkillers and sent me home. He didn't even listen." Mike frowned. "That's not right. You deserve better than that. Maybe you should see another doctor." James knew Mike was right, but the thought of going through another dismissive appointment was daunting. Still, he couldn't ignore the worsening pain. He decided he needed to find a doctor who would take him seriously, someone who would listen and help him get to the bottom of his symptoms. As he searched for another medical professional, James couldn't help but feel a growing determination. He wasn't just doing this for himself. He was doing it for his family, for Lisa and their children. They deserved to have him healthy and present. And deep down, James knew he deserved to be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of his race. Determined to support her husband, Lisa took matters into her own hands. She spent hours researching online, reading reviews, and asking for recommendations in local community forums. She was determined to find a doctor who would not only take James's symptoms seriously, but also treat him with the respect he deserved. One evening, after the kids were in bed, Lisa sat down with James at the kitchen table. She had a list of doctors she had compiled. "James, I've found a few doctors who come highly recommended. I think we should try again." James looked at the list, feeling a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. "I appreciate this, Lisa. I just hope we don't run into the same problem." Lisa squeezed his hand. "We won't give up until we find someone who listens. You deserve proper care, and we'll get it." Among the names on the list was Dr. Karen White, a well-respected cardiologist who had numerous positive reviews for her thoroughness and compassionate care. Lisa had read several accounts of patients who felt genuinely heard and well treated by her. "I think we should try Dr. White first," Lisa suggested. "She specializes in heart-related issues, and she seems to have a great reputation." James nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. "Okay, let's give her a try." The next day, Lisa called Dr. White's office and explained James's symptoms and their urgency. The receptionist was kind and understanding, managing to schedule an appointment for James the following week. As the appointment day approached, James felt a mix of nervousness and hope. He couldn't help but replay the previous doctor's dismissal in his mind, but Lisa's unwavering support gave him strength. "This time will be different," he told himself, clinging to the possibility of finally getting the answers he needed. On the day of the appointment, James and Lisa arrived at Dr. White's office early. The waiting room was calm and welcoming, with soothing music playing softly in the background. The atmosphere was markedly different from the cold, sterile environment of Dr. Smith's clinic. When Dr. White entered the examination room, she greeted James and Lisa warmly. "Good morning, I'm Dr. White. What brings you in today?" James felt an immediate sense of relief at her approachable demeanor. He explained his symptoms, detailing the chest pain, shortness of breath, and fatigue that had been plaguing him for weeks. Dr. White listened attentively, nodding and taking notes. After James finished, Dr. White asked several follow-up questions, showing genuine concern for his well-being. "Thank you for sharing all of that with me, James. It's important we get to the bottom of these symptoms. Let's start with a thorough examination and some tests to see what's going on." James felt a wave of relief wash over him. For the first time since his symptoms began, he felt truly heard and cared for. Dr. White's compassionate approach was a stark contrast to his experience with Dr. Smith, and it gave him hope that they were finally on the right path. Dr. White conducted a thorough examination, listening to James's heart and lungs, checking his blood pressure, and asking about his medical history. She then ordered a series of tests, including an ECG, a chest X-ray, and blood work. James and Lisa appreciated her meticulous approach and felt reassured by her thoroughness. After the tests, Dr. White sat down with James and Lisa in her office to discuss the results. "James," she began, "your ECG shows some irregularities, and your blood work indicates elevated markers that suggest a possible cardiac issue. I'd like to perform an echocardiogram to get a better look at your heart's function." James nodded, feeling a mix of anxiety and relief. He was worried about what they might find, but relieved that Dr. White was taking his symptoms seriously. "Thank you, Dr. White. I'm just glad we're finally getting to the bottom of this." The echocardiogram revealed that James had a condition called cardiomyopathy, which was causing his heart to work harder than normal and leading to the symptoms he had been experiencing. Dr. White explained the condition in detail, using simple terms to ensure both James and Lisa understood what it meant and how it could be managed. "Cardiomyopathy can be managed with lifestyle changes and medication," Dr. White explained. "It's important to reduce the strain on your heart, so we'll need to work on a treatment plan that includes medication to help your heart pump more efficiently, as well as changes to your diet and exercise routine." James felt a surge of gratitude towards Dr. White. She had not only identified the problem, but also provided a clear plan to manage it. He looked at Lisa, who gave him an encouraging smile. "We'll do whatever it takes," James said, determination in his voice. Dr. White prescribed medication to help manage James's condition and referred him to a nutritionist to help him make the necessary dietary changes. She also recommended a cardiac rehabilitation program to gradually improve his physical fitness in a safe and monitored environment. As they left Dr. White's office, James felt a sense of hope and empowerment. He finally had a diagnosis and a clear path forward. "I can't thank you enough, Dr. White," he said, shaking her hand. "It's my pleasure, James. I'm here to help you every step of the way," she replied with a warm smile. Lisa hugged James tightly once they were outside. "I knew we'd find someone who would listen and help," she said, tears of relief in her eyes. James smiled, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. "We did it together, Lisa. Thank you for believing in me and pushing for answers." With a new sense of purpose, James committed himself to following Dr. White's treatment plan. He took his medication diligently, attended his cardiac rehab sessions, and worked with a nutritionist to adopt a heart-healthy diet. The journey was challenging, but James was determined to reclaim his health and live a full, active life. Months passed, and James made significant progress in managing his cardiomyopathy. He felt stronger and more energetic, and his symptoms had greatly diminished. He continued to follow Dr. White's treatment plan, attended regular checkups, and adhered to his new lifestyle with unwavering dedication. One crisp autumn morning, James had an appointment with Dr. White for a follow-up. As he walked into the hospital, he noticed a familiar figure in the lobby, Dr. Roberts. The sight of him brought back the memory of their first encounter, but James felt a sense of calm rather than anger. He had come a long way since then. Dr. Roberts was speaking with a nurse, but he glanced up and saw James. His face registered a mix of surprise and uncertainty. He seemed to hesitate for a moment before approaching James. "James, right?" Dr. Roberts said, his tone cautious. "I see you're doing well. I'm glad." James nodded, offering a polite smile. "Yes, Dr. Roberts, I'm feeling much better now, thanks to Dr. White. She was able to diagnose my condition and set up a treatment plan that's been very effective." Dr. Roberts looked taken aback by James's response. He shifted uncomfortably, clearly recalling their last interaction. "That's good to hear. I apologize for how things went when we first met. I should have listened more closely to your concerns." James appreciated the apology, even if it felt a bit awkward. "Thank you, Dr. Roberts. It's important for all patients to be heard and taken seriously. I'm just grateful that I found a doctor who did." Dr. Roberts nodded, looking somewhat humbled. "I'll keep that in mind. It's a valuable lesson." Just then, Dr. White entered the lobby, her face lighting up when she saw James. "James, great to see you. Ready for your checkup?" "Absolutely," James replied, feeling a warmth spread through him at the sight of his dedicated doctor. Dr. White noticed Dr. Roberts standing nearby and offered a polite nod. "Good morning, Dr. Roberts." "Good morning, Dr. White," he responded, still looking a bit uneasy. "I was just talking to James here. It seems you've done an excellent job with his care." "Thank you," Dr. White said, her tone professional yet warm. "James has been an exemplary patient, following his treatment plan diligently. It's been a team effort." As James and Dr. White walked towards the examination rooms, Dr. Roberts watched them go, a contemplative look on his face. It was clear that this encounter had made an impression on him. During the checkup, Dr. White reviewed James's latest test results. "Everything looks great, James. Your heart function has improved significantly, and your overall health is excellent." James beamed with pride. "I couldn't have done it without your help, Dr. White. Thank you for everything." Dr. White smiled, her eyes twinkling with genuine care. "You did the hard work, James. I'm just glad I could guide you along the way." As James left the hospital that day, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. He had faced a serious health challenge, found a compassionate and skilled doctor, and learned to advocate for his own health. The encounter with Dr. Roberts had shown him how far he had come and reinforced the importance of being heard. James knew that his journey wasn't over, but he felt ready to face whatever came next with confidence and determination. And he hoped that his story might inspire others to seek the care they deserved and never give up, no matter the obstacles. After leaving the hospital, James felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had experienced the challenges of navigating the healthcare system as a black man, and he wanted to ensure that others in his community received the support and advocacy they needed. With this goal in mind, he decided to start a local support group for individuals facing similar health issues. James began by reaching out to friends, family, and acquaintances. He shared his story and encouraged them to join the group, emphasizing the importance of community support and education. To his delight, many people expressed interest and enthusiasm. The first meeting was held in the community center, a modest but welcoming space. James stood at the front, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. He looked around at the faces of his friends, neighbors, and even a few strangers who had heard about the group through word of mouth. "Thank you all for coming," James began, his voice steady. "I wanted to start this group because I believe that no one should have to face health challenges alone. When I was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, I felt scared and uncertain about my future, but with the support of my family, friends, and an amazing doctor, I was able to get through it." He paused, looking at the attentive faces in the room. This group is about more than just sharing our experiences. It's about educating ourselves and each other, advocating for better health care, and supporting one another in times of need. As the meeting progressed, people began to share their own stories. Some spoke of struggles with chronic illnesses, while others discussed difficulties they had faced in accessing quality health care. There were moments of laughter, tears, and heartfelt connection. James felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that this was the beginning of something important. One of the attendees, a middle-aged woman named Linda, stood up to speak. "James, thank you for creating this group. I've been dealing with diabetes for years, and it's been a lonely journey. Having a place where I can talk openly and get advice from others who understand is invaluable." Another attendee, a young man named Marcus, nodded in agreement. "I've had asthma since I was a kid, and it's always been tough finding doctors who take my symptoms seriously. It's great to know I'm not alone." The meeting continued with discussions on various topics, from diet and exercise to navigating insurance and finding supportive healthcare providers. James had invited Dr. White to speak at the meeting, and she gladly accepted, offering her expertise and answering questions from the group. "I'm honored to be here," Dr. White said, her voice warm and sincere. "James has shown incredible strength and resilience, and I'm proud to support this initiative. It's crucial for everyone to feel empowered to advocate for their health and well-being." As the meeting came to a close, James felt a sense of camaraderie and hope. The support group had already made a positive impact, and he was determined to keep it going. He knew that by working together, they could create a healthier, more informed, and more supportive community. After the meeting, several attendees approached James to express their gratitude and offer their help in organizing future events. Linda offered to bring healthy snacks for the next meeting, and Marcus volunteered to help with setting up and promoting the group. James drove home that evening feeling uplifted and inspired. He had turned a painful experience into a source of strength, not just for himself, but for others as well. The support group was just the beginning, and he was excited to see where this journey would lead. Inspired by the positive response to the support group, James decided to take his efforts a step further. He realized that raising awareness about healthcare disparities and advocating for better treatment for the Black community was crucial. To make a broader impact, he planned a series of community events and educational workshops. James started by organizing a health fair at the community center. He collaborated with local healthcare providers, fitness instructors, nutritionists, and mental health professionals to offer free services and information. The event was designed to be accessible to everyone, with activities for all ages and a focus on preventative care and healthy living. The day of the health fair dawned bright and clear. Volunteers set up booths and displays, filling the center with colorful posters, pamphlets, and health products. There were stations for blood pressure checks, diabetes screenings, and fitness assessments. Nutritionists offered healthy cooking demonstrations, and fitness instructors led short exercise sessions throughout the day. James stood at the entrance, greeting attendees as they arrived. He was thrilled to see such a diverse turnout, families with children, young adults, and seniors all eager to learn and participate. The atmosphere was lively and positive, with music playing and the buzz of conversations filling the air. Dr. White had agreed to give a keynote speech at the fair, and as she took the stage, the crowd quieted. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice carrying a tone of warmth and authority. "Today is about empowering ourselves with knowledge and taking proactive steps to improve our health. It's about community, support, and making sure everyone has access to the care they need." She continued, sharing statistics about health disparities and emphasizing the importance of regular checkups and early detection. "Healthcare is a right, not a privilege," she said firmly. "We need to work together to ensure that everyone receives the quality care they deserve, regardless of their background or circumstances." The crowd responded with enthusiastic applause. James felt a swell of pride and gratitude for Dr. White's unwavering support. Her words resonated deeply with everyone present, reinforcing the mission of the event. Throughout the day, James moved between booths, chatting with attendees and participants. He was particularly moved by a conversation with an elderly man named Mr. Jenkins. "I've been neglecting my health for years," Mr. Jenkins admitted, his voice tinged with regret. "I didn't think it mattered, but seeing all this today, it's given me hope." "Thank you for doing this, young man." James smiled, touched by the man's words. "It's never too late to start taking care of yourself, Mr. Jenkins. We're here to help in any way we can." The health fair was a resounding success, with hundreds of people benefiting from the services and information provided. Local media covered the event, and James was interviewed by a reporter who asked about his motivation. "I started this because of my own experiences," James explained. "But it's grown into something much bigger. We need to address the systemic issues in our healthcare system and ensure that everyone has access to the care they need. This is just the beginning." The positive media coverage brought even more attention to James's efforts. He received calls and emails from people all over the city, expressing their support and asking how they could get involved. The momentum was building, and James knew they had an opportunity to make a real difference. Buoyed by the success of the health fair, James began planning a series of workshops and seminars. These events would cover a range of topics, from managing chronic illnesses to understanding mental health, and would be led by experts in each field. James also started a social media campaign to spread awareness and share resources. He posted articles, infographics, and personal stories, encouraging others to share their experiences and support the cause. The online community grew rapidly, with people from all walks of life joining the conversation and offering their support. As James looked at the growing impact of his work, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey had been challenging, but every step had brought him closer to his goal of creating a healthier, more informed, and more equitable community. As James's campaign gained momentum, he began to attract attention from unexpected quarters. One day, he received a phone call from a representative of the local government. The mayor's office had taken note of James's efforts and wanted to discuss potential collaboration to address healthcare disparities in the city. James felt a mix of excitement and apprehension as he prepared for the meeting. He knew this could be a significant opportunity to amplify their impact, but he was also wary of potential political maneuvering. Determined to stay true to his mission, he walked into the city hall with his head held high. The mayor, a charismatic woman named Lisa Martinez, greeted James warmly. "I've been following your work, James," she said, shaking his hand. "It's inspiring to see someone take such initiative and make a real difference in the community." James smiled, feeling slightly more at ease. "Thank you, Mayor Martinez. It's been a challenging journey, but the support from the community has been incredible." Mayor Martinez nodded. "I'm aware of the systemic issues in our healthcare system, and I want to help address them. I'd like to propose a partnership. We can provide funding and resources to expand your outreach and implement some of the solutions you've identified." James was taken aback by the offer. He hadn't expected such direct support from the local government. "That sounds amazing, but I want to make sure our goals align. It's crucial that the voices of those most affected by these disparities are heard and that we address the root causes, not just the symptoms." Mayor Martinez smiled approvingly. "Absolutely. We can start by organizing a task force comprising community leaders, healthcare professionals, and policymakers. Together, we can develop comprehensive strategies to improve healthcare access and outcomes for everyone." With the mayor's backing, James's initiatives received a significant boost. The task force was formed quickly, and its members brought diverse perspectives and expertise to the table. They met regularly to discuss issues, brainstorm solutions, and develop actionable plans. One of the key initiatives that emerged from these discussions was the creation of mobile health clinics. These clinics would travel to underserved neighborhoods, providing free medical services, health education, and resources. The goal was to reach those who might otherwise go without care due to transportation barriers, financial constraints, or mistrust of the healthcare system. The first mobile clinic event was held in a parking lot in one of the city's poorest neighborhoods. James stood by the entrance, greeting residents as they arrived. The turnout was higher than he had anticipated, with families, elderly individuals, and young adults lining up for services. Dr. White, who had been instrumental in planning the event, worked tirelessly alongside other volunteer doctors and nurses. They provided checkups, vaccinations, screenings, and health advice. There was also a tent for mental health services, where counselors offered support and resources to those in need. As the day progressed, James observed the impact of their efforts. He saw the relief on people's faces as they received much-needed medical attention, the smiles of children getting their vaccinations, and the gratitude of parents who learned about managing their family's health. During a brief lull, James spotted Mayor Martinez talking to a group of residents. She listened intently, taking notes and asking questions. Her genuine engagement reassured James that their partnership was on solid ground. After the event, the mayor approached James. "Today was a success," she said. her tone reflecting both satisfaction and determination. "But it's just the beginning. We need to keep this momentum going and expand our reach." James nodded in agreement. "Absolutely. There's still so much work to be done, but seeing the positive impact today has reinforced my belief that we can make a real difference." The partnership with the local government brought additional benefits. They secured funding for more mobile clinics, developed health education programs in schools, and created a network of community health workers to provide ongoing support. James also forged alliances with local businesses, churches, and non-profit organizations. These partnerships helped to extend their reach and ensure that the message of healthcare equity resonated throughout the community. As James reflected on the progress they had made, he felt a deep sense of gratitude for the unexpected allies who had joined their cause. The journey was far from over, but with the support of the community and the local government, they were on the path to creating lasting change. Months had passed since James's initial encounter with Dr. Harris, the doctor who had refused him service. With the mobile clinics and community initiatives in full swing, James had become a well-known advocate for healthcare equity. His name and face appeared in local newspapers, on community boards, and in social media posts highlighting the progress they were making. One day, while James was working at one of the mobile clinics, a familiar face appeared in the crowd. Dr. Harris, looking visibly uncomfortable and out of place, stood at the edge of the event, watching the proceedings. James noticed him immediately, a mixture of emotions flooding through him: anger, hurt, but also curiosity. Taking a deep breath, James approached Dr. Harris. "Dr. Harris," he greeted, his voice steady. "It's been a while." Dr. Harris looked at James, a hint of shame in his eyes. "James, I didn't expect to see you here. I heard about the work you've been doing. It's impressive." James nodded, not entirely sure what to make of the doctor's presence. "Thank you. We're trying to make a difference." Dr. Harris shifted uncomfortably. "I owe you an apology. The way I treated you was wrong. I've thought about it a lot since then." James looked at him, his expression unreadable. "Why are you here, Dr. Harris?" The doctor sighed, looking around at the bustling clinic. "I came to see it for myself, to understand, and maybe to offer my help." James raised an eyebrow, surprised by the offer. "Your help?" Dr. Harris nodded. "I've realized that I need to do better, that we all need to do better. I want to be part of the solution, if you'll have me." James took a moment to consider the offer. He could sense the sincerity in Dr. Harris's words, but the memory of the doctor's initial rejection still stung. "We can always use more medical professionals," he said finally. "But this isn't just about treating patients. It's about changing the way we think and act. It's about respect and equality." Dr. Harris nodded. "I understand. I want to learn and to help in any way I can." James extended his hand. "Welcome to the team, Dr. Harris. But remember, this is about more than just medicine. It's about community." Dr. Harris shook James's hand, a look of relief washing over his face. "Thank you, James. I won't let you down." As the day went on, Dr. Harris integrated himself into the clinic, working alongside James and the other volunteers. James watched as the doctor interacted with patients, offering his expertise and showing genuine care. It was a stark contrast to their first encounter, and James couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction at the transformation. Later, as the clinic began to wind down, Dr. White approached James. "I saw you talking to Dr. Harris earlier. How did that go?" James sighed, a thoughtful expression on his face. Better than I expected. He's here to help, and I believe he's sincere. But trust takes time. Dr. White nodded. People can change, James. Sometimes it just takes a wake-up call. What you're doing here is giving people that chance. James smiled, appreciating the support. Thanks, Dr. White. It's been a long journey, but moments like these make it worth it. As the sun set and the clinic wrapped up for the day, James reflected on the day's events. Dr. Harris's return had been unexpected, but it also symbolized the impact of their work. It was proof that change was possible, even in the most unlikely of places. The following days saw Dr. Harris becoming a regular volunteer at the mobile clinics. He attended community meetings, participated in health education programs, and slowly began to earn the trust of those he had once overlooked. His transformation was a testament to the power of community and the importance of second chances. James knew that their work was far from over, but with allies like Dr. Harris and the continued support of the community, they were well on their way to creating a more equitable healthcare system. And for the first time in a long time, James felt hopeful about the future. Over the next few months, Dr. Harris's transformation became even more evident. He wasn't just a volunteer. He was a dedicated member of the team, working tirelessly to support the community. His approach to medicine changed as he learned more about the struggles faced by the underserved and marginalized populations. Dr. Harris attended every training session, eagerly absorbing the principles of cultural competence and patient-centered care. He became a vocal advocate for the clinics, using his connections and influence to secure additional funding and resources. His efforts didn't go unnoticed by James or the community. One particular day, James watched as Dr. Harris gently treated a young boy who had scraped his knee. The doctor's demeanor was kind and patient, a stark contrast to the dismissive attitude James had encountered during his first visit to the clinic. It was clear that Dr. Harris had undergone a profound change, and it wasn't just about professional growth. It was personal. During a team meeting, Dr. White addressed the group. I want to acknowledge the incredible work that everyone has been doing, especially Dr. Harris. His dedication and commitment have made a significant impact on our efforts. There was a round of applause, and Dr. Harris looked humbled. Thank you, he said. This experience has been transformative for me. I've learned so much from all of you, and I'm committed to continuing this work. James felt a sense of pride. He had been skeptical at first, but Dr. Harris had proven himself. It was a reminder that people could change, given the opportunity and the right environment. One evening, after a particularly busy clinic day, Dr. Harris approached James. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Of course," James replied, curious about what the doctor had to say. They found a quiet spot outside the clinic, the evening air cool and refreshing. Dr. Harris looked thoughtful. "I've been thinking a lot about my journey over the past few months," he began. "When I first saw you at the clinic, I didn't recognize my own biases. I was blind to the struggles that so many people face every day." James listened, nodding. It's not easy to confront those biases, but it's the first step toward change. Dr. Harris sighed. "I realize now that it's not enough to just treat patients. We have to advocate for them, fight for systemic changes that ensure everyone has access to quality healthcare. I've seen how much difference our work makes, and I want to do more." James smiled. "We're all in this together, Dr. Harris, and your transformation is proof that we can change minds and hearts." As they continued to talk, James felt a renewed sense of purpose. Dr. Harris's journey from a dismissive doctor to a passionate advocate for healthcare equity was inspiring. It reinforced the importance of their mission and the impact they could have on individuals and the broader community. The next few weeks brought more successes. The mobile clinics expanded to new areas, reaching even more people in need. Dr. Harris's efforts to secure funding paid off, allowing them to hire additional staff and purchase new equipment. The community's response was overwhelmingly positive, and the clinics became a symbol of hope and resilience. James and Dr. Harris grew closer, their shared experiences forging a strong bond. They often discussed ways to improve their services and brainstormed ideas for future projects. Dr. Harris's insights, combined with James's lived experiences, created a powerful partnership that drove their efforts forward. One day, as they prepared for another busy clinic, James received an unexpected call from a local news station. They wanted to feature their work in a segment about community healthcare initiatives. Excited about the opportunity to raise awareness, James agreed. When the news crew arrived, they interviewed James, Dr. Harris, and several community members who had benefited from the clinics. Dr. Harris spoke passionately about his transformation and the importance of addressing healthcare disparities. James watched with pride, knowing that their story would inspire others to join the fight for equitable healthcare. As the segment aired, the response was overwhelming. Donations poured in, and more volunteers signed up to help. The community rallied around them, and their efforts gained momentum. James realized that their work was making a difference, not just locally but on a larger scale. In the following weeks, the clinics continued to thrive. Dr. Harris's dedication never wavered, and his transformation inspired others in the medical community to examine their own biases and practices. James knew that their journey was far from over, but with allies like Dr. Harris and the unwavering support of the community, they were well equipped to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The story of the mobile clinics and Dr. Harris's transformation began to spread beyond their local community, garnering attention from media outlets and healthcare organizations nationwide. It wasn't long before their work caught the eye of the National Health Equity Alliance, a prominent organization dedicated to promoting equitable healthcare access across the country. One day, James received an email from the Alliance, inviting him and Dr. Harris to speak at their annual conference. The conference was a major event, attended by healthcare professionals, policymakers, and advocates from across the nation. It was an opportunity to share their story on a grand stage and inspire others to join the fight for health equity. James couldn't contain his excitement as he shared the news with Dr. Harris. "Can you believe it? We've been invited to speak at the National Health Equity Alliance Conference." Dr. Harris's eyes widened in surprise and delight. "That's incredible. It's a huge honor. We need to prepare a powerful presentation." Over the next few weeks, James and Dr. Harris worked tirelessly to create a compelling presentation. They wanted to highlight the importance of addressing healthcare disparities, the transformative impact of the mobile clinics, and the personal journey that had brought them to this point. As the day of the conference approached, nerves and excitement built up. The conference was held in a large convention center, and the energy in the air was palpable. When it was finally their turn to speak, James and Dr. Harris took the stage together, facing a packed auditorium. James started by sharing his personal story, recounting the day he was rejected by Dr. Harris and how it had fueled his determination to make a difference. He spoke about the creation of the mobile clinics and the countless lives they had touched. The audience listened intently, moved by his heartfelt words. Then, Dr. Harris took the microphone. He spoke candidly about his own biases and the profound impact that working with the mobile clinics had had on him. "I was blind to the realities faced by so many in our community," he admitted. "But through this experience, I've learned that true healthcare isn't just about treating patients. It's about understanding their lives, their struggles, and their needs." He continued, "We must challenge the systemic barriers that prevent equitable access to healthcare. We must listen, learn, and advocate for change. I've seen firsthand the difference it makes, and I am committed to continuing this work." The audience erupted in applause, many rising to their feet in a standing ovation. James felt a swell of pride as he looked at Dr. Harris, knowing that their story had resonated deeply with those in the room. After their presentation, James and Dr. Harris were approached by numerous attendees, eager to learn more about their work and how they could get involved. Healthcare professionals shared their own experiences and challenges, while policymakers expressed interest in supporting similar initiatives in their own communities. One of the attendees was Dr. Ellen Carter, the president of the National Health Equity Alliance. She was deeply impressed by their presentation and invited them to join a panel discussion later in the conference. "Your story is a powerful example of how we can drive change from the ground up," she said. "We need voices like yours to lead the way." The panel discussion was another success, with James and Dr. Harris providing valuable insights and practical advice. Their message was clear: addressing healthcare disparities required collaboration, empathy, and a commitment to justice. The recognition and support they received at the conference had a ripple effect. Donations to the mobile clinics increased, allowing them to expand their services even further. They were invited to speak at other events, sharing their story and advocating for health equity on a national level. James and Dr. Harris continued to work tirelessly, inspired by the impact they were making. Their partnership, once marked by tension and misunderstanding, had blossomed into a powerful alliance for change. Together, they were not only transforming their community, but also influencing the broader healthcare landscape. Years passed, and the mobile clinics became a cornerstone of the community. Their success had a profound impact, not only on the local area, but on the national conversation about healthcare equity. James's story, from rejection to resilience, had inspired countless others to take action in their own communities. James and Dr. Harris continued to work together, their bond growing stronger with each passing year. They had faced numerous challenges, but their shared commitment to justice and equality kept them moving forward. The clinics expanded to serve neighboring towns, reaching even more underserved populations. The National Health Equity Alliance, impressed by the sustained impact of their work, decided to honor James and Dr. Harris with a prestigious award. The ceremony was held in Washington, D.C., and attendees included influential policymakers, healthcare leaders, and advocates. As they took the stage to accept their award, James and Dr. Harris reflected on their journey. James spoke first, his voice steady and filled with gratitude. "This award is not just for us," he began. "It's for every person who believed in the power of change, for every patient who trusted us with their care, and for every community that fights for its right to health and dignity." Dr. Harris followed, his eyes scanning the audience. "I once made a mistake that almost cost me my integrity," he said. "But that mistake led to a partnership that has taught me more than I could have imagined. Together, we have shown that change is possible, that barriers can be broken, and that everyone deserves access to quality health care." Their speech was met with thunderous applause, and as they stood together, they felt a profound sense of accomplishment. The recognition was a testament to their hard work and the lives they had touched. Back in their community, the impact of their work was evident. The mobile clinics had improved health outcomes, reduced disparities, and fostered a sense of trust and cooperation among residents. The clinics had become a symbol of hope and resilience, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, change was possible. James and Dr. Harris continued to innovate, seeking new ways to serve their community and address emerging challenges. They trained new generations of healthcare professionals, instilling in them the values of empathy, equity, and justice. Their legacy was not just in the services they provided, but in the minds and hearts of those they inspired. One day, as they sat together in the mobile clinic, reflecting on their journey, Dr. Harris turned to James. "We've come a long way," he said, a smile on his face. James nodded, his eyes filled with pride. "Yes, we have. And there's still so much more to do." Their story was far from over. It was a story of resilience, redemption, and the relentless pursuit of justice. It was a story that would continue to inspire and drive change for years to come. And so, in a small clinic that had once been a symbol of disparity, a new chapter began. A chapter of hope, progress, and a lasting legacy that would continue to transform lives and communities, proving that even in the darkest moments, the light of justice could shine through.